This video is heavily inspired by Iron Pineapple's Souls-like Steam Dumpster Diving series, and a Pokemon-like variant video like this has already been done by Noggin from the Luxin and Noggin's channel. If this video doesn't sit well with you, do head on over to these channels. I'm positive you'll have a good time over there. Hello. I'm going to open with a short rant in relation to my rather clickbaity title. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was obviously chasing some very tough deadlines. The Pokemon Company was rushing its release to keep up with a seemingly unmovable deadline, so it was rough to say the least. Aside from the very obvious performance and graphical issues, there are a myriad of other questionable game and design choices that really take away a significant deal from the game itself. The world building, town and city designs, a lackluster post-game, I could go on. Bigger channels and YouTubers have made countless videos pointing out very valid criticisms of the game. Don't get me wrong though, I had some bits of fun with the game despite its glaring shortcomings, but that's the main issue here. There shouldn't be a despite in that sentence. I think it's finally time for me to stop defending Game Freak and the Pokemon Company for repeatedly releasing substandard Pokemon games. There's of course nothing wrong with liking Scarlet and Violet and having fun with it, but we have to stop taking these games as they are with the hopes of a day one patch or an eventual performance fix. If we're paying a full game AAA price for this half-baked mess, then we should expect something equivalent to that amount of hard-earned money. For me, the game cost north of $80 Canadian to play on release, so fun I guess is the bare minimum of the minimums that we have to expect, especially as fans of the franchise and genre. But hey, this game sold 10 million copies in the first 3 days, so I suppose I can shove my opinions up my bum. This video isn't made entirely to criticize Scarlet and Violet. Well, maybe it is. So I will take a very petty stand and spend roughly the same amount of money on Pokemon-like games and see if I can't have as much fun, or maybe even more. So what are Pokemon-likes, or Pokemon clones as some other people would call it? Pokemon-likes are games that try to share that monster taming, creature collecting elements of the Pokemon series, usually coupled with the party battling system as well. These games most likely will contain similar type and element system, much akin to Pokemon's type battling system. Evolutions are also a big part of Pokemon-like games, much like Pokemon, though most of the time they would find some other way to call it. And that's about it for a general introduction of Pokemon-likes. Let's get right into the video. So I'll start with a game that left a strong impression on me, Abomi Nation, a roguelike monster taming RPG. During the 4 to 5 hours that I played it, it's got quite the simple main premise. In the land of the Abomis, we've got Ioti here, the light spirit, having its life threatened by the main villain of the game, Fursafume. Not every Abomi could defeat Fursafume and his corrupted minions, so together with Ioti, we were to gather different Abomis with the potential to become the defenders of light. These Abomis would become the main bulk of our fighting party, journeying together with Ioti. The type matchups in Abomi Nation are quite straightforward, meaning if you've played Pokemon before, you will probably get the hang of things pretty quickly. There are a total of 8 types, and managing through them didn't take long for me at all. There are also natures, which you can change by paying different NPCs in towns. And that brings me to the next point, the battle system. Although the core of the combat in Abomi Nation is one-on-one combat, it does allow for 3 of your party members to be deployed at the start of the battle. You can select attacks that damage all of the enemy Abomis on the field, or choose a rallying move that strengthens your team. This makes battling a lot more unpredictable and dynamic. And things do get very tense because once you lose an Abomi, you lose them forever in that run. If you like Nuzlockes, you'll definitely find quite a lot of fun from this game. Throughout the story, you'll fight Fursafume's lieutenants, and they are by no means an easy fight. You get a level cap per boss battle, so there can't be any over-leveling, and these lieutenant battles are Gauntlet Elite Four type battles. I lost a crocodile Abomi named Poponal in the first boss fight, and the game spared no time in reminding me that the party had indeed taken a loss. And this would repeat every time I had lost an Abomi. The game had a very charming way of constantly telling me that I had indeed sucked and caused a loss of life. Evolving Abomis can only be done in battle after meeting certain requirements, and they do last throughout the whole run. It's definitely an interesting take and method to evolution, and I found that grinding wasn't too bad. All in all, I find that Abomi Nation is a gem to play. The interface feels smooth, the battles flow in a nice tempo, the characters and dialogues encountered are really charming, and the music is great. Most of the Abomi design is cute and pleasant to look at, and this game offered a generally fun experience. Some dialogues and parts of the game could be a bit repetitive, but that's to be expected from a roguelike and randomly generated game. If you like Nuzlockes and being guilt trip every time you lose a party member, you should definitely try this game out. If you like Metroidvanias and Pokemon, you might be a fan of this one. Monster Sanctuary is a Metroidvania monster taming RPG, where we start as a rookie keeper in a long line of monster keepers. The world of Monster Sanctuary is filled with monsters, much like its name, though people have found a way to tame them and have them work alongside humans. We were given 4 choices of starters to begin with, each with their own unique typing. After, we begin the game with our character going through the Keeper's Trail, learning the ropes as a beginner monster keeper. We're able to get more monsters by defeating them in the wild, hoping for an egg to drop. We have the option of hatching these eggs and adding them to our party, or donating them to the Keeper's Stronghold where most of the world's population reside, according to the game's intro text, that is. Upon leveling up, your monster can expand their repertoire by spending skill points on the skill tree. This took me a while to get used to. There are quite a lot of choices and possibilities depending on how we spend our skill points, so figuring out what to make of my team was quite fun. The world of Monster Sanctuary itself is quite pleasant to go through, with most of the exploration and segments feeling quite well designed. They encourage obtaining more monsters by placing treasure chests behind obstacles that require monsters' unique abilities, so it could be worth the time to grind for most of the monsters' eggs. Aside from fighting monsters, we also fight other keepers and the main villains of the game, the alchemists, and the 3v3 battle system honestly was hard for me at first. At least the learning curve was steep for me. I might just suck at it. But since these battles do take a bit of strategizing to do, I felt quite accomplished and elated whenever I win one. Some parts of this game did feel a bit grindy though, like gathering the materials to evolve the monsters. We could only evolve our monsters in this one spot in the game, and while recording footage for this video, I managed to evolve only this one monster. I did evolve more off recording while playing this game on my own time. To progress through the story, we fight boss monsters known as champions, and the previously mentioned villainous alchemists. While it is quite simple, the story does enough to keep me engaged to continue playing, and I would say I had a really good time playing through Monster Sanctuary. It feels smooth and flowing, and I think I'll be finishing this game when I have the chance. Next up, we have Pixel's Digital Creatures. I got the demo for this game, which is still in early access, and I think the demo gives a pretty good idea of what the game is supposed to be like. According to its Steam page, Pixel's Digital Creatures is a turn-based combat roguelike where you battle with digital creatures called pixels. Simple enough. We fight through a randomly generated virtual world, moving tile by tile. We can find an assortment of actions in each tile where we can battle, recruit more pixels, shop, and rest. Much like Pokemon and other Pokemon likes, we start off our adventure by choosing one of the 3 starter Pokemons, pixels, and off we go to the next tile. The game doesn't really explain its typings and moves, so I had to just trial and error my way to victory. After winning a battle, the game gives an option of cash, shards, which you can only use to prepare for a new run, and an elixir to heal your pixels. And this is pretty much it for the demo. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's obviously still very early in development, but it looks like it could be pretty fun. I'm not the biggest fan of the pixel and character designs, but it could very well be a good time burner. I'll come back to check the state of this game in the coming future. I picked up this game because it looks good, but what I didn't know was this was a sequel to its entry game called Nexomon. But no matter, I'll try to talk about this game without really revealing plot spoilers and the likes. I reckon my first reaction to this game's title screen was pretty similar to many of you watching. I feel like I've seen this creature before. I wonder where. Nexomon Extinction features a characteristically JRPG saving the world in peril story that starts off slow, but I feel like it's done in a way that's quite refreshing. Our main character is mainly accompanied by Coco, this cat-like thing, who likes to break the fourth wall quite a bit. I do appreciate the fact that even though the story is building up into something quite serious, the game doesn't take itself too seriously. It complements the art style really well, which I'm also quite a fan of. Later on, Coco might break the fourth wall a bit too much, but it's still somewhat easy to brush off. The game gives you 9 Nexomon to choose from during an early crisis in the game, and for a player such as me who was new to the series, this was quite overwhelming. I had a guess for what each type symbol might be, but it was quite difficult to choose from just because there's too many. I ended up choosing this electric lizard purely from the fact that I thought it was cute and proceeded with the game. The tutorial section featured the protagonist from the previous game, which I'm sure is a nice touch for returning players. We use Nexotraps to catch wild Nexomon, this game's Pokeball's equivalent. The world design in Nexomon Extinction is also something noteworthy, taking into account that for this video I was only 5 to 6 hours into the game. But judging from the screenshots I've seen, I'm honestly looking forward to exploring the rest of the game's locations. The NPCs placed in towns and routes feel like they were placed there with real intentions, making these places feel much more alive and immersive. Evolution follows Pokemon's tried and true formula, mostly level-based evolutions. The Nexomon designs for the most part are easy on the eyes, though I also have a few comments about a good chunk of them. However, the same could also be said about Pokemon designs in every generation. There is a tree in a haunted forest who's looking for friends. This whole side quest was very entertaining. I do recommend trying it for yourself. Honestly, this whole thing is optional, but it's stuff like these that prove to be quite memorable for the players. The battling mechanics feel very fluid, with attack animations having very little weight in between. The overall battling UI experience makes it feel like we're not really wasting any time during grinds. NPCs constantly change their teams to scale with yours, with rematches popping back in quite frequently, making grinding more accessible. There's also a custom mode allowing different types of runs for the game. This game gives you the option of a Nuzlocke, so that's a nice touch. One thing that I wasn't a fan of was the dynamic difficulty, meaning while Nexomon will scale with your team's level, it does take away the feel of a traditional RPG, for me at least. But in summary, Nexomon Extinction feels quite complete and worth a look for its price. Monster Crown is a monster taming RPG with retro graphics coupled with a unique monster breeding mechanic. We'll get back to that in a minute. It feels to me that Monster Crown is trying to capture the feel and magic of the first two generations of Pokemon, and honestly, it did a pretty good job. I like the overall feel of the game, and the 8-bit music that comes with it is pretty great. There isn't too much to talk about in terms of battling with there only being 5 types, but there were a couple of added battle mechanics that were introduced fairly early into the game. In Monster Crown, we capture monsters by forcing them to accept a pact after weakening them, which sounds a whole lot like blackmail, honestly. Let's get back to that unique breeding mechanic. Monster Crown introduces us to this breeding mechanic, which enables us to breed any 2 monsters. And you could probably tell what makes this unique. On top of the already existing monsters on the overworld, we would also be able to further breed the monsters so that we bred from them. Eventually, we would arrive at a point where we would be making completely new and unique monsters. And this is a super interesting take. I've tinkered with the system and came up with a couple of abominations myself. This game's story, much like the Pokemon fan games out there, takes quite the darker turn. The concept of death exists in the universe of Monster Crown, with the first one occurring not too far from the start of the game. With everything considered, I think the story was compelling enough to keep me glued to the game. What didn't keep me glued was the bugs and glitches. I first encountered a bug in this cave next to Milltown, where the character's sprite would just get stuck after walking into this rock here. We needed to move this rock to progress with the story, so it took me a while to figure out a space where I could free my character to move this rock. While annoying, a bug on this scale wasn't necessarily game-breaking. This next bug I encountered, however, had the possibility to do just that. During a quest where we were supposed to save our dad from a trickster monster, we were supposed to encounter it here. It didn't spawn, so naturally I just walked right past it. I was confused as to why the quest wasn't triggering, so I went back from the beginning of the woods and was able to do it the second time. I lost in this battle and tried to go back again, only to find them bugged and unable to be interacted with. I wandered around the woods and actually found the monster sprite tucked away on the opposite side. I did finally get over this section after resetting a couple of times. Playing through the game did get somewhat heavy after this, fearing for further glitches and bugs. This game is charming, don't get me wrong, and there are a lot of positives to be taken from Monster Crown. The monster breeding mechanics creative and unique, the world and story building are engaging, and the music is great. But the fear of running into more bugs do keep me from playing this game further, which is a shame. I was a bit torn on whether I should include this game for this video or not, ultimately deciding that I should. Most of the Pokemon likes, if not all, in this video are from indie devs, so I thought it wouldn't be fair to include a game published by a AAA company. However, this video is all about racking up games that totals to Scarlet and Violet's release price, and this game happened to be on discount. Considering a game by Square Enix would probably rival Pokemon in development cost, this comparison seems fair. And I also wanted to play it. So here we go, this is World of Final Fantasy.
World of Final Fantasy.
This game is a turn-based JRPG, much like the older Final Fantasy titles, with a monster taming element to boast. On top of the 2 protagonists, Rain and Lan, being able to participate in battles themselves, we could also capture Mirages and send them out to battle for us. Mirages in this game could also evolve, dubbed Transfigurations. That's just a very Final Fantasy term. To top off the normal and expected battle system, World of Final Fantasy introduced the stacking mechanics where we could literally stack Mirages on top of us or on top of each other. This opens up different possibilities for combat, leaving us to choose from having more turns with unstacked characters or having a single turn with a beefy and hard-hitting stack. In the end though, I mainly just start every battle with a stack and unstack when I was about to get toppled. I think that's what everyone does too. The variety of the stack can change with the 2 forms our protagonists can take, the Lilican form and the Giant form. Each form takes up a different space in the stack, and it does make for a fun mix and match situations. If the battle system is too easy, we could also switch to the real-time action battle system, where the enemy would attack without waiting for us to make a decision when it's their turn. I opted out of this, wanting a nice and relaxing experience. As expected from a Square Enix experience, the world and environmental building is quite adept, with most objects, sceneries and assets being nice to look at. Oh, and what's this?
The town seems to have a threshold around it.
Huh? Then does that mean there's a powerful mirage here in Saronia?
It's got voice acting. Really brings the game world alive, doesn't it? Talk about immersion. I tried both the English and Japanese dubs, they are both great. I kept the English one on though, since I primarily played through the Final Fantasy series in English. Before pointing out anything else, the music, primarily composed and arranged by Masashi Hamauzu, is fantastic. I've always been a big fan of the orchestration and arrangement of Final Fantasy music, and this one definitely did not disappoint. Plaza 99 has some of the best music I've heard from the Final Fantasy series. The chord changes and arrangement really personally resonated with me. Moving on, true to the Final Fantasy formula, the atmosphere and story really makes it for an enjoyable ride. We play as Rain and Lan, twins who have lost their memories and are on a journey to regain them. I was having mini Kingdom Hearts flashbacks every time a cutscene would play, hoping the story wouldn't get as convoluted as the Kingdom Hearts storyline. Thankfully, it never got that far. The story isn't the greatest, but it's decent. Before I even knew it, I had already spent 5 hours into the game. It's a blast getting through the dungeons, solving puzzles, getting my ass kicked by optional higher leveled monsters, and just generally spending time in the game itself. Although it's not for everyone, I was enjoying meeting past Final Fantasy characters in their chibi forms. It provides a different experience altogether. I could say a lot more about this game, but I'll cut this segment short by saying one thing. This game was released back in 2016, and it feels really polished on release. I'm picking a lot of the sequels, aren't I? Wings of Ruin is the direct sequel to the first Monster Hunter Stories game, which I think really polished a lot of what the community was asking for. The battle system has a clear and simple rock, paper, scissors mechanic for a turn-based battle system, with added armor and weapon building from the base Monster Hunter games. You also get to hatch monster eggs and use them in battle, which are quite questionably named Monsties. You also get to alter their genes a bit further down the story. Story-wise, we continue the bloodline of Red as a monster rider and climb up the ranks as well. I won't get into too much of it due to spoilers, but I feel like the story, albeit very niche and predictable, is well paced. Nothing stands out too much, but it does enough to carry the game through. If we compare Wings of Ruin's battle system to Pokemon, then I'll have to call Wings of Ruin's battle system quite simplistic due to its rock, paper, scissorsy nature. The game teaches you that there are a lot of ways to get through a battle, but I find myself repeating the same strats to get through most of it. It's a shame that despite all the equipment upgrading and forging, the damage our character deals to enemy monsters is still relatively low, and that we have no control over our monsties in battles outside of the kinship skills. I would call Wings of Ruin more of a traditional JRPG with a turn-based battle system rather than a Pokemon-like, but people are calling it a Pokemon clone, so I guess I have to include it here. In relation to battles, it would probably be nice to have an option to make the battles even faster. Times 3 still feels slow at times. The graphics and textures are nothing life-changing since it was intended for the Switch as well, but Wings of Ruin definitely did enough to keep things very pleasant and easy on the eyes. The art direction this game took is quite different than the usual look Monster Hunter goes for, but I'm all for it. As a fan of the Tales games, I'll happily play a game with this art style. There's a little number of complaints that I have regarding scene transitions and camera work, like this abruptly quick transition from the catavan, but these don't really diminish my playing experience. Now, I haven't finished this game at the time of writing, but it's been a good time so far. I do realize and actually anticipate that there is probably going to be a lot of grinding the deeper I go into this game, but as a Monster Hunter fan I could probably say, that's Monster Hunter in a nutshell, right? I'm fully expecting to be killing the same Legiana about 40 times just to get one rare material out of it because of horrendous RNG. With that said, I could definitely say that Wings of Ruin would be in the same strain of game that I could play while listening to music or videos in the background during my time off. Even while recording footage for this video, before progressing much of the story, I spent an extra hour or two just getting materials for the armor sets. Some of these aren't the best looking, but I really appreciate the option to change our armor's colors at will. But Capcom, please, tone down these types of disruptive cats in your next game. Naviero is borderline psychotic. After playing all these games dubbed Pokemon-like, it's such a damn shame to realize that the standard of current Pokemon games have fallen so low. The Pokemon Company is constantly rushing mainline games, and it's absolutely mind-boggling to me that the game managed to sell 10 million copies in the first 3 days of release. And I'll say it again, I don't think there's anything wrong with liking the game, I just think we have to stop making excuses for the game just because we still had fun with it. The game could be so much more, and a lot of the fans are reaching copium levels akin to K-pop and BTS fans level. No offense to BTS stans, I'm sure all the BTS members are absolute saints. Going forward, I don't think I'll be doing nuzlockes and gameplay videos on Scarlet and Violet. All things considered, I don't find the game very replayable, much like Sword and Shield. And should things continue down this trend, for the first time ever, I might have to abstain from buying the next mainline Pokemon release. Otherwise, I'll still be doing Nuzlocke and challenge runs on the older games, so please look forward to that. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video and take care.